Initially, what made you want to come on board Spider-Noir?
What made me want to come and work on Spider-Noir? I would say the script, for sure, and Nicolas Cage. Like, it was great. I got the script, I loved it, I read it, I could totally see it. I understood what they wanted, what our showrunner, Oren, who wrote it, what he wanted. I thought, okay, I understand this. And then I knew it was Nicolas Cage, and I'm a huge fan of Nicolas Cage, who isn't, and I was like, this is a no-brainer.
Now, it kind of opens more film noirish. You know, the style's more broken down there. What was the process of opening, trying to establish that kind of gritty noir world before you really introduce, the superheroes?
Yeah, we worked on the opening a lot. Thanks for asking that. It was a big process to get to what you see in the pilot right now for the opening. So, because it combined so many different things, right? So it had black and white. It was Nicolas Cage voiceover, like a Sunset Boulevard style voiceover. So black and white noir leaning. Then it had Spider-Man swinging through the streets of New York and a ton of animation, right? And then it had live action of Nicolas Cage. So it was really a mashup of genres. So it proved that superheroes and noir can be genres that can work together, right? Which is basically what we tried to show for the whole 8 episodes. So this was really kind of like the litmus test that we did. So we really worked on it a lot to make sure that we could nail it. And that, it had action, it had emotion, it had a backstory. So I think it did a lot for the show in a very concise way, and felt really effective. And I think it set up his emotional journey, because at the heart of it, if you're not engaged with the characters and if you don't care about them, then it doesn't matter, right? It could be all a bunch of other stuff, but if you don't care, then, it doesn't matter.
Now, from an editing, pacing standpoint, it must have been challenging how to balance the superhero and the film noir.
Yeah.
Like when to pull, you don't want to do it too quickly, too drastic. What was the challenge of kind of like weaving in the superhero stuff so it doesn't kind of, overtake the noir?
For sure. And that's something that actually Oren, he talked about a lot too, because yes, of course, it's Spider-Man. Like that's what the project is, right? But also at the heart, it's Ben Reilly. And it's Nicolas Cage, right? So you want to keep that, always the beating heart of that and what his emotional journey is. And so we did have Spider-Man parts, and we did talk about in terms of editing, maybe setting a little bit more noir pacing for times when we're with Nicolas Cage, when we're with Ben Reilly, right? But then when it's action and it's Spider-Man, an audience is more used to a traditional, a little bit more faster paced editing. So we were sort of cognizant of keeping both of those happening at the same time.
We have a lot of editing students that watch. So I'm curious, is there one scene in particular that you're most proud of? It could be more of a subtle scene that took a while to get, but you're really proud of, the editing students could study.
I mean, I would definitely say the opening, because that you can see the balance of everything. It's something that for sure editing students could study, just how when the voiceover started, when the lines come in, what images are happening at that time, when the score comes in, what the sound does, like the rain and the fighting, and I would definitely say break that down. But I would also say I love the Rockefeller fight. At the end. Yeah. It's so fun, right? Because it's very, he's just walking to Rockefeller. So it's kind of, and there's score there, and it's kind of tense. And then you get to the top, and you're not quite sure exactly what's going to happen, right? It's a little bit slower. You're watching, he's standing on the edge, the wind, all the visual effects look great. But then it becomes something that's a nod to noir, right? It's funny. It's like you have the punch, and he looks at the camera, which is a very kind of dated thing to do, but it's so fun. It makes it so wonderful. And then it becomes an action piece, and then it becomes the reveal of Sandman, right? So it's it becomes this modern day thing, and then he gets thrown off the building, and you see him make the decision to come back and be Spider-Man again. So it's just, I feel like it has a great arc, an emotional arc with him. Nick was wonderful in it. So just, I feel like it's such an interesting sequence.
We're going to talk some Spider-Noir. You have a great 1940s old school film noir and superhero. How do you approach the sound when you're trying to balance those two worlds?
A lot of experimentation. So, because it's not something that's ever really been done before, so we weren't sure exactly if it was going to work. And we came in with the idea of let's make it sound really old, like a 1940s Bogart era movie. We made everything mono. We picked sounds not just of the time period, but of the filmic era where we recorded things with older technology, we did things with equalization and mixing it more mono as opposed to being in a giant theater. And then it was just a matter of how do we find how to introduce a modern sensibility to it. And what we ended up doing was starting in a film noir mono, establish this, and then as it becomes more of a superhero show and less of a detective show, we start to expand the palette in the sound and use the space more. So if you see it in a movie theater, if you ever have the opportunity, you'll hear it be much more mono and then spread its way out.
Yeah, and in a home surround system, you could hear it too in such a way where the first spot to really see that is the spider sense coming to life for the first time when he's chasing Addison. And that was where we really wanted to showcase this idea of that he's coming back to life and his sense can hear everything. We've been in the 40s noir-esque film world, but now this is a comic book blockbuster that we're trying to present as well. So we wanted to have that fulfill through all the speakers and have it really have that low end that you would never have in a movie from that era.
That must be an interesting balancing act, though, because you're starting, like you said, mono, old school, but you also can't blow up the sound too quickly, like because the audience will be pulled out. How was the process of progressing it, where you had to kind of pace it a little, almost like saying like editing, pace it so the audience is not totally like, whoa.
Yeah, it's about picking your spots. So we first sort of marked out where the spots that we wanted to be full fidelity were going to be. So that spider sense was one, and then a little bit through the end of that scene where the oil refinery explodes, and then go back down, and then come back again when Cat Hardy sings for the first time in the alcove, and then come back again during the fight with Sandman when the Sandman gets revealed. So it was really picking those spots and then just finding the way to gradually expand out into it, or using a specific sound. So in the case of the Spidey sense, like that warble that we introduced the Spidey sense with allowed us to go from the center channel all the way around the room very organically, because that sound demanded that we do that.
And that was very much a choice made that, we wanted to make it sound like the way spiders hear, and the way they hear, we found out, was through their legs, through the web. And that was a great way to tie into the multiverse of kind of where the noir character came from, and having this idea that, well, it should be this low frequency vibration, not high frequencies, because it's all about the vibration of the web. So it was a lot of fun to be able to take that, and Ryan Collins, our effects mixer, moving it around the room the way he did, opening everything up. It was so organic and smooth that everyone we want to do it in a way that's subliminal, so that you don't know it's happening, and then as we come back down, you're kind of like with the alcove and Cat Hardy singing, he's mesmerized by it, but then he hears one of the goons coming in, and we have to slowly bring that back into the mono-esque feel.
Yeah, so much of sound and what we do is so that you feel it rather than hear it. In a way, and that was one of those elements. Although I kind of describe it as we try to be like a magic trick, where we don't want you to see how the trick is being done, but we want you to be affected by it all, and that's ultimately the goal of what we do as sound creatives.
All right, so is there one particular scene that you're most proud of? It could have been a subtle scene, doesn't have to be a big one, that, what, we pulled this off. This one wasn't easy, but we're really happy dramatically how it paid off.
For me, the Spider Sense moments in general were all great. But one of my favorites was at the end in 108, when we are in that big fight at the very end where we have Sandman and Megawatt, and we have to hear the sand and the electricity and the intensity and the spider thwips and the car going by and slow motion, and doing that and dialing it in very specifically to have that beat to go with the composing score was such a unique experience to feel, and then also take us back down to a quiet moment where Silvermane and Cat have their final moment together and get the audience to feel that eeriness of what's about to come for them. So dynamically, that was so much fun to create and build with the entire team.
And what was your favorite?
I was going to say the mirror scene, the mirror maze sequence with Cat and Silvermane at the end, because that was a real opportunity to do a very film noir visual thing and utilize sound in the space in a way that the films of film noirs back in the 40s didn't get to do. So you have Silvermane and Cat's voice sort of ping-ponging around in the glass shards when she shoots the mirrors, filling up the room and everything. And it was just that's kind of the epitome of the balance between a love letter to film noir and making a modern movie.
Even underneath that, we have that subtle subliminal sound design where we have to lead you to the next mirror, and we have to have these high frequencies and low elements. So like he said, it's just that ode to noir, but keeping it in that modern worldscape.
Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to talk some Spider-Noir. So our first generic question is, what made you guys want to jump on board this amazing project?
Well, I love the 1930s. I did another show, Perry Mason, and I thought, ooh, we get to dive into another world, but it's not just based in reality. It's like fantasy of Spider-Man, and how do we make that work together?
I just love working with that team. So Halina said, do you want to do this? I was like, oh, work with you? Yes. And then also I had done a couple other Spider-Man projects, so I was kind of already nerdy about working on it to see the difference, or like, oh my gosh, it's going to bring back a lot of memories. And strangely, it did not. It was such a very different, completely different Spider, not even Spider-Man, the Spider than I was used to.
It's interesting. It's almost like, because half the movie superhero, half is noir, it's a good team, because you're both like the most perspective. All right, but the beginning of it is really noir is the heart of it at the beginning. Yes. Especially the opening scene, the opening pilot. You have to establish a noir world, Nicolas Cage's office. What was the process of trying to establish the noir angle of it?
Well, we really leaned into old movies. We did a lot of research. Again, we wanted to create a real world and then put that noir spin on it. So we did a lot of research. How did people live in the 1930s? How was it being a Depression era? What were the challenges? So we had to make it feel real, but also give that noir spin. And so one of the influences was the Maltese Falcon. Like, we really, Humphrey Bogart, not only did, Spider kind of talk like him, but we really tried to make his environment look like that office.
And how about for you? What was it, creating the noir world, what was the most challenging part for you for that?
Shopping, thinking about color and black and white at the same time. So we need these drapes. They have to be a specific height. However, they have to have a certain amount of contrast between the background and the pattern. And you're like, oh my God, I actually found all of these and they're the right height. Oh no, but they look terrible in black and white. And a sad trombone sound just follows you everywhere.
I guess the next challenge is, but you have to, and slowly as the series evolves, we know the superhero stuff becomes more prominent.
Yes.
So what was the balance? Now you have to create sets and designs that are part noir, part superhero. How did that work?
So we had a lot of collaboration between all the teams. We had our stunts coordinator, we had visual effects, we had special effects, construction. Like, how do we make these sets and these environments that supports the action? Because even though a lot of visual effects go in, you're still having actors performing things in real life. So it's a real choreography of departments.
And for you, what was the biggest, or the most fun set to work on when you got into superhero stuff?
Oh, fun set. I don't know if, okay. My favorite was the we had to do a bunch of different backlots and dress them completely out, and we had to do the universal backlot, and that was the most fun for me. I thought that looked, like, once it was all done and dressed, I thought that looked the coolest and the most like the city, and the graphics were amazing, and I just like, it sounds boring, it's a street scene,
No,
but
I love it.
that was the most fun for me. And also because it became a collaboration between everyone on the team in the end, and when everyone comes together on one thing, that also gets me really excited.